Qatar's royal family is so rich that they don't just own homes around the world, they own entire landmarks. From the $1 billion Doha Royal Palace complex with 15 interconnected palaces and parking for 500 cars, to London's Dudley House, the second largest private home in the city after Buckingham Palace itself, and super yachts like the $400 million Qatar, longer than a FIFA football pitch with its own helipad and beach club. In this video, we're going inside the multi-hundred billion dollar empire of Qatar's Al Thani royal family. And trust me, they're far richer than you could ever imagine. The hidden empire. When you hear the words royal family, your mind probably drifts to the glittering halls of Buckingham Palace, the storied traditions of the British monarchy, or perhaps the glamorous lives of European princes and princesses who grace the covers of celebrity magazines week after week. You might think of the House of Windsor, the Spanish Bourbons, or the various constitutional monarchies scattered across Scandinavia. But here's something that might genuinely surprise you, something that might make you reconsider everything you thought you knew about wealth and power in the modern world. There exists a royal family so extraordinarily wealthy, so incomprehensibly rich, that they could theoretically purchase the British Crown estate several times over and still have enough left to buy a small country for the weekend. I'm talking about the Al Thani family of Qatar, and their fortune is so staggeringly vast that most people genuinely have no idea just how deep their pockets truly go. When Forbes and Bloomberg compile their famous billionaire lists, you won't find the Al Thanis prominently featured at the very top, and that's not because they don't belong there. It's because their wealth is structured in a way that makes conventional measurement almost impossible. It's embedded within the very fabric of their nation, intertwined with sovereign funds, and hidden behind layers of state apparatus that would make even the most seasoned financial analysts scratch their heads in bewilderment. They've essentially built a financial fortress so complex that even trying to estimate their true net worth becomes an exercise in educated guesswork. So let's talk numbers, shall we? Because when we're discussing wealth at this level, the numbers themselves become almost surreal, like something out of a fever dream involving Scrooge. McDuck's Money Vault. The current emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who has ruled Qatar since 2013 when his father peacefully abdicated the throne, has a personal net worth estimated at roughly $2 billion. Now, $2 billion is certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's more money than most people could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, more wealth than entire generations of families could accumulate working around the clock. But here's where things get truly mind-bending, where the numbers start to lose all meaning. That $2 billion figure is essentially pocket change when you consider what the family actually controls. According to Bloomberg's comprehensive 2024 analysis of Middle Eastern wealth, the Al Thani family's private holdings alone, separate from any state assets, are valued at a minimum of $150 billion. That's $150 billion with a B. To put that in perspective, that's roughly equivalent to the GDP of Hungary, a European nation with nearly 10 million citizens. But even that astronomical figure tells only part of the story, because sitting quietly in the background, like a financial dragon guarding an unfathomable hoard of treasure that would make Smaug himself green with envy, is the Qatar Investment Authority, a sovereign wealth fund managing somewhere between $525 and $557 billion in assets as of 2025. That's more than $500 billion, controlled by a single family in a country smaller than the state of Connecticut. Let me put that in perspective for you, because these numbers are so large they almost become meaningless without proper context. The Emir of Qatar personally chairs the board of the QIA. His relatives and trusted associates occupy key positions throughout the organization. There is, for all practical purposes, zero meaningful separation between what belongs to the royal family and what belongs to the state. The boundaries that would typically exist in other countries between private wealth and public resources simply don't apply here. In a nation with only about 300,000 actual citizens, among a total population of nearly 3 million, the per capita control that this family exercises exercises over national wealth is absolutely, positively, categorically unmatched anywhere else on the planet. It's not even close. Now, you might be wondering how on earth one family managed to accumulate such an obscene amount of wealth in just a few generations, more money than most countries see in a century. The answer lies beneath the azure waters of the Persian Gulf, in a geological formation known as the North Field, the world's single largest natural gas reserve, a treasure trove of hydrocarbons that stretches for thousands of square kilometers beneath the seabed. This underwater treasure chest, discovered in 1971 but not fully exploited until the 1990s, transformed the Al Thani family from relatively modest pearl diving sheikhs into some of the most powerful energy titans the world has ever known. It was a transformation so complete, so absolute, that it's almost difficult to comprehend from the outside looking in. Qatar's liquefied natural gas exports generate somewhere between $50 and $80 billion every single year. Yes, you heard that correctly, between $50 and $80 billion annually, and the vast majority of that money flows directly into the Qatar Investment Authority, which was established in 2005 specifically to diversify the nation's wealth beyond hydrocarbons and ensure future generations would remain wealthy long after the gas eventually runs dry. But here's the beautiful part of their strategy, the aspect that truly sets them apart from other resource-rich nations. They're not slowing down, not even close. In fact, they're accelerating. The North Field expansion projects that are currently underway represent one of the largest energy infrastructure investments in human history. These projects will increase Qatar's LNG production capacity from 77 million tons per year to an astounding 142 million tons by 2030. That's an 84% increase in output over just 5 years. At conservative price estimates, this expansion will add another $25 to $40 billion in annual revenue to their already overflowing coffers. Their wealth isn't just maintaining itself, it's growing at a rate that defies belief. What makes the Al Thani wealth machine so remarkably efficient compared to other royal families around the world? What's their secret sauce, so to speak? It comes down to one simple word: concentration. Consider the House of Saud in neighboring Saudi Arabia, perhaps the most famous oil-rich royal family in the world. The Saudi royal family is absolutely enormous, with thousands upon thousands of princes, many of whom receive substantial monthly stipends that cost the kingdom billions of dollars every year just to maintain. The wealth gets dispersed, diluted, and spread across countless hands, each one reaching into the pot for their share. Some estimates suggest the Saudi government has paid out over $100 billion in stipends to royal family members over the past few decades. The Al Thanis operate on an entirely different model. While the extended family numbers in the thousands when you count distant relatives and various branches, the actual ruling branch, the descendants of the previous emirs who control virtually everything of significance, represents a remarkably small and tight-knit group. There's no sprawling stipend system bleeding money in every direction. There's no need to maintain thousands of princes in palatial luxury. Instead, almost all hydrocarbon wealth and investment returns remain concentrated within a tiny elite circle at the very top of the family hierarchy. When you add up the family's direct holdings of around $150 to $175 billion, plus their de facto control over the QIA's $557 billion, plus the continuous flood of gas revenues worth trillions over the coming decades, you arrive at an effective wealth figure somewhere in the neighborhood of $700 to $730 billion under direct Al Thani influence. And that number is growing every single day, compounding like interest in a savings account that happens to hold $500 billion. The reason most people dramatically underestimate the Al Thani fortune is that their wealth is, as financial experts often describe it, institutionalized through the state apparatus rather than scattered across flashy personal billionaire listings. Like, they don't need to show up on the Forbes list to be among the richest families on Earth. They've transcended that game entirely. While Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos battle for the top spot on various wealth rankings, the Al Thanis quietly sit back knowing that their effective control over financial resources dwarfs most individuals on any Al-Thani list. They built something far more powerful than personal wealth, a self-perpetuating wealth machine that converts natural resources into global influence. And it's been running at full speed for decades now, growing stronger with each passing year. But wealth on paper is one thing. Numbers on a spreadsheet, figures in a database. What really captures the imagination, what truly illustrates the scale of Al-Thani opulence in a way that raw numbers simply cannot, is how they actually spend their money. And trust me, the ways they choose to deploy their fortune will absolutely blow your mind. Palaces, yachts, and masterpieces. Now that we've established just how incomprehensibly wealthy the Al-Thani family actually is, and I hope those numbers are still bouncing around in your head because they're almost impossible to truly grasp, let's dive into the truly spectacular part of this story. How do you actually spend hundreds of billions of dollars? Because here's the thing that wealthy people understand that the rest of us often don't fully appreciate. Once you reach a certain level of affluence, money becomes almost abstract. A $50 million yacht and a $500 million yacht are both just yachts. A $10 million mansion and a $200 million palace are both just places to sleep at night. The numbers lose their meaning. So the Al-Thanis have had to get exceptionally creative in how they deploy their wealth, and boy, have they risen to the challenge in spectacular fashion. Let's start with their homes, and I use that word loosely because calling these structures homes is like calling the Sistine Chapel a nice little church or the Grand Canyon a pleasant ditch. The crown jewel of Al-Thani real estate, the centerpiece of their property empire, is the Doha Royal Palace, a sprawling complex valued at approximately $1 billion. Let me say that again. $1 billion for a single residential complex. This isn't just one palace sitting on a manicured lawn. It's essentially a golden city within a city, a self-contained universe of opulence comprising 15 separate palaces interconnected across vast landscaped grounds that could swallow most golf courses whole. Every surface gleams with gold leaf detailing that catches the desert sun. Marble halls stretch toward soaring ceilings that seem to touch the heavens. Multiple ballrooms stand ready to accommodate the most lavish state events imaginable, each one capable of hosting hundreds of guests in absolute luxury. Private mosques provide spiritual refuge for the family, and underground, hidden from view, a parking facility that can accommodate 500 automobiles, because apparently, when you're this wealthy, even your parking needs are palatial. But why limit yourself to one country when you can own significant portions of another? The Al-Thani family has been on an absolutely legendary London buying spree for the past 2 decades. Accumulating so much prime real estate in Britain's capital, their private properties in London alone total 1.8 million square feet and are valued at approximately £2.4 billion. That's over $3 billion worth of London real estate. To put that in a perspective that might make British royalists choke on their tea, the Al-Thanis own more prime London real estate than the British monarchy itself owns privately. The family that has ruled Britain for centuries has been outpurchased by a family from a country most Britons couldn't locate on a map 50 years ago. One of their most impressive London acquisitions is Dudley House on Park Lane. At 44,000 square feet, it's the second largest private residence in London after Buckingham Palace itself. Think about that for a moment. The only private home in London larger than this Al-Thani property is the official residence of the British monarch. Sheikh Hamad bin Abdullah Al-Thani, a cousin of the current emir, purchased it for £37.4 million back in 2006, and then embarked on a restoration project that would make most museum curators weep with joy. He spent tens of millions more on a meticulous restoration that recreated lost interiors with museum-quality precision, bringing in master craftsmen from around the world to restore every detail to its original Georgian splendor. The property features an 81-foot gallery that could rival any major museum's collection space, and its current estimated value has ballooned to exceed £200 million. Then there's the Cornwall Terrace mega mansion in Regent's Park, where the family combined multiple grade wine-listed townhouses purchased for over £120 million into plans for a single massive palace palace featuring 17 bedrooms, indoor pools, a private cinema, and a juice bar because apparently, when you're worth hundreds of billions, you absolutely need a dedicated juice bar in your London vacation home. The estimated value of this compound now sits somewhere between 200 and 300 million pounds, making it one of the most valuable private residences in European history. But land-based opulence only tells part of the story. Any billionaire can buy a mansion. There are thousands of them available at any given time. True ultra-wealth distinction comes from what floats on the water, and in this arena, the Al Thanis have truly outdone themselves. The super yacht Qatar is a 124-meter marvel, valued at somewhere between $300 and $400 million, and it's widely considered by maritime experts to be one of the most beautiful vessels ever to grace the world's oceans. To give you a sense of scale, this yacht is longer than a FIFA regulation football pitch. It features a helipad for convenient arrivals by air, a beach club for when you want to feel the sand between your toes without actually going to a public beach, an elevator to transport you between decks because stairs are apparently too pedestrian, and interior appointments that rival any five-star hotel on the planet. And that's not the only super yacht in the family fleet, because when you're at this level of wealth, having a single floating palace would be embarrassingly modest. The Al Lusail, built by the legendary German shipyard Lürssen in 2017, stretches 123 meters with interiors reportedly worth $500 million when fully outfitted, $500 million for the interior of a boat. Let that sink in for a moment. When you're operating at this level of wealth, you don't just own one floating palace, you own a small navy of them, ready to cruise to any destination on Earth at a moment's notice. Speaking of transportation, let's look skyward, where the Al Thanis have established aerial dominance that would make some small nations' air forces jealous. The family operates what can only be described as a private air force through the Emiri Flight, Qatar's Royal Aviation Division. Their fleet includes multiple Boeing 747-8 VIP jets, and these aren't your standard commercial aircraft with fresh paint and leather seats. We're talking about flying palaces valued at $300 to $400 million each when fully customized, featuring gold fixtures throughout, full-size bedrooms that would put five-star hotel suites to shame, conference rooms for conducting business at 40,000 feet, and dining facilities that would embarrass most Michelin-starred restaurants. One particular 747-8 in their fleet was reportedly valued at between $500 and $600 million when all modifications were complete. That's more than $500 million for a single airplane. But perhaps nothing illustrates Al Thani spending power quite like their approach to art collecting, an arena where they have established themselves as the most formidable buyers the art world has ever seen. The family, led by Sheikha Al Mayasa bint Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, Emir's sister and chair of Qatar Museums, has assembled one of the most valuable art collections on Earth, with acquisitions totaling well over $1 billion in headline purchases alone. At the peak of their buying spree in the 2010s, when they were reshaping the global art market with their aggressive acquisition strategy, they were reportedly spending approximately $1 billion annually on art acquisitions, a figure that made them the world's most aggressive art buyers by a considerable margin. Let me share some of the crown jewels of this collection with you. Paul Cézanne's The Card Players was acquired for approximately $250 to $274 million in 2011, setting a record at the time for the most expensive painting ever sold in history. Commanded an even more staggering price of around $300 million in 2015, surpassing the previous record, the highest sum ever paid for a painting at that time. Mark Rothko's White Center went for $72.8 million. Andy Warhol's Men in Her Life cost $63.4 million, and the family reportedly purchased 11 Rothko paintings from financier J. Ezra Merkin in a single transaction worth approximately $310 million, an entire museum's worth of masterpieces in one deal. The collection extends far beyond Western modern masters into virtually every category of collectible art. art. The Al Thani Collection Foundation maintains over 6,000 objects spanning from ancient artifacts thousands of years old, to Mughal jewels of exquisite craftsmanship to Fabergé eggs, and it's now permanently exhibited at the Hôtel de la Marine in Paris under a 20-year agreement. Sheikha Moza bint Nasser, the mother of the current emir, has a personal jewelry collection alone that's estimated to exceed $1 billion. Here's the truly mind-bending part of all this extravagant spending. None of it makes the slightest dent in the family fortune. A $400 million super yacht, that's less than 0.1% of their controlled assets. A $300 million painting? A rounding error. The total visible personal spending of the Al Thani family over the last decade likely amounts to less than $5 to $10 billion, which sounds enormous until you realize it represents less than 1 to 2% of the QIA's assets alone. They're not just rich, they're so incomprehensibly wealthy that even their most lavish purchases are essentially meaningless to their bottom line. But personal. Luxury is only one side of the Al Thani empire. What they've built on the investment front, the web of global acquisitions that extends their influence across continents and industries, is even more impressive. And that's where this story gets really interesting. The global empire. So we've talked about the source of Al Thani wealth, and we've marveled at how they spend it on personal luxuries that would make Roman emperors blush with embarrassment. But the true genius of this family, the reason their fortune continues to grow exponentially rather than gradually depleting, lies in their investment strategy. The Qatar Investment Authority hasn't just been sitting on piles of cash like some enormous piggy bank waiting to be cracked open. It's been systematically acquiring stakes in the world's most valuable companies, the most iconic properties, and the most promising industries. And the scale of this operation is genuinely staggering. Let's start with their stake in the automobile industry. The QIA holds a 17% stake in Volkswagen Group, one of the largest single equity positions in the entire fund, worth somewhere between 10 and 15 billion euros despite recent share price pressures. This isn't just a passive investment. It grants them board seats and genuine influence over one of the world's largest automakers, which also happens to own Porsche, Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, and a host of other luxury brands. When you drive past a Volkswagen, an Audi, or a Porsche, remember, a significant portion of the profits from that vehicle eventually make their way back to the Qatari royal family. Then there's their position in British infrastructure. The QIA owns a 20% stake in Heathrow Airport, Europe's busiest aviation hub, expanded as recently as 2025. Every time you or anyone else flies through Heathrow, a slice of those airport fees and retail revenues flows toward Doha. They've positioned themselves at literally one of the most important transportation choke points in the Western world. But perhaps nowhere is Qatari investment influence more visible than in London. According to The Guardian's investigation, Qatar ranks as Britain's 10th largest landowner with holdings totaling 2.1 million square meters. And their total UK assets, combining real estate with equity stakes like Heathrow, exceed £40 billion. That's over $50 billion worth of Britain owned by this single family. The iconic Harrods department store, purchased by the QIA for £1.5 billion back in 2010, it's now worth an estimated £3 to $5 billion and serves as both a cash cow and a symbol of Qatari influence in the heart of London's most exclusive shopping district. The Shard, that glittering glass spike that dominates London's skyline, Qatari DR funded most of its £2 billion development cost, and they maintain a controlling interest in the building and surrounding land. Canary Wharf, the second financial heart of London, they acquired majority control through a £2.6 billion deal and have been transforming it into a fintech hub. And then there are the hotels. Through various family vehicles and QIA subsidiaries, if you've ever stayed at any of London's most legendary hotels, there's a good chance you were contributing to Al Thani profits. The family's investment in sports deserves special attention because it represents perhaps their most visible form of global influence. Sheikh Tamim himself founded Qatar Sports Investments back in 2004, which acquired the Paris Saint-Germain Football Club in 2011. What was once a middling French club has been transformed into a global football powerhouse with a brand value now estimated at $4.5 to $5 billion. The Messi era, the Neymar era, the Mbappe era, all of it funded by Qatari wealth, all of it extending Al Thani influence into the living rooms of football fans worldwide. But PSG is just the beginning. The family holds a stake in Portugal's SC Braga, approximately 30% of the Audi F1 team through their Sauber investment, racing stables that compete at Royal Ascot through Wathnan Racing, and a 5% stake in Monumental Sports and Entertainment. And let's not forget that Qatar itself hosted the 2022 FIFA World Cup, a project that cost the nation an estimated $200 billion, a figure so astronomical that it exceeds the GDP of most countries. The tentacles of Al Thani investment extend into virtually every industry imaginable. Through Mayhoola, their private investment vehicle, the family controls approximately 70% of Valentino, 100% of Balmain, and stakes in numerous other luxury fashion houses. The former emir personally owns the Printemps department store chain in France. When you purchase a Valentino gown or a Balmain, investments in renewable energy through Adani Green, RWE, and Rolls-Royce's small modular reactor division, and a digital infrastructure partnership with Blue Owl Capital. The Al Thanis aren't just coasting on their current wealth, they're actively positioning themselves to profit from the next century's most transformative technologies. So let's bring this all together and answer the question posed in the title of this video. Why are Qatar's royal family richer than you think? First, there's the concentration factor. Unlike other royal families that dilute their wealth across thousands of members, the ruling Al Thanis keep virtually everything within a tight inner circle. Second, there's the acceleration factor. LNG revenues aren't declining, they're actively expanding, with production increases that will add tens of billions in annual revenue by 2030. The QIA has been quietly generating returns estimated at 8 to 15% annually, turning their already astronomical wealth into something even more incomprehensible with each passing year. And fourth, there's the invisibility factor. Because their wealth is embedded within state structures rather than held in personal accounts that appear on Forbes lists, most people simply have no idea how wealthy they actually are. When you calculate the net present value of their future LNG cash flows from 2025 to 2050 at conservative prices, you're looking at an additional $1 to $2 trillion that will eventually flow through their hands. Even if only half of that ends up in QIA coffers and family holdings, the ruling branch's effective wealth already sits in the trillion-dollar range when you include state control. The Al Thani family didn't just get lucky with natural resources. They built something far more impressive, a near-perfect wealth concentration machine that converts underground gas into above-ground global influence. They shape industries from automotive to football to artificial intelligence. They've accumulated art collections that rival national museums. They travel in yachts longer than football fields and jets that cost more than most countries' annual budgets. And here's the truly remarkable part. This machine is only now hitting peak velocity. The expansion projects are just coming online. The investments are compounding year after year. The gas reserves show no signs of depletion. While other fortunes rise and fall with market cycles, the Al Thani empire continues its steady, inexorable growth. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.